So my demonstration is on how I use Copilot for using soap notes. So I'm not sure if everybody does their uses the same platform that we use at Covenant House, but we have what we call soap notes, right? So I'm going to move this thing out of my way. I'm going to open up something really quickly. Give me a second. We're gonna go here, and I'm going to open up a use so you can see what a soap note means. Because off the top of my head, I do not remember the acronym, but it's a way to document things so all things are consistent and accurate, right? So we are going to do progress note. Take a new progress note. Pay this no mind. This is also how I use chat, Copilot. We're going to close that for a second. So in order to document things, right, they have to go into what we call a SOAP. So SOAP is strengths, observed, objectives, account, interaction, assessment, and plan. So everything has to be put into that in order to cover all the bases, right? So what I normally do is I put it in chat. I don't put the use information, of course, but I say create a SOAP. And like I said last time, because I do it so much, it's kind of intuitive. It knows what a SOAP is. So when I first started doing it, I had to put in the same thing, copied and pasted, told it what a SOAP note was and what's the platform I'm using a SOAP note for. Now that I've done it a couple of times, it knows once I put create a SOAP note for use that is transitioning to Franklin woman shelter, right? And then if there's something specific I wanted to include the address of the shelter and inform you of let's say transitional services. You can be as specific or as vague sometimes with Copilot, but as you use it, it becomes intuitive to the things that you're looking for. So this is a SOAP note. SOAP note, transition women's Franklin's Women's Shelter. It gives me spaces that I can fill in. So the client's name, the date, the program. I see at no point did I say bridge, but because again, it knows who I am and what I'm writing it for, it tells the program. And it gives it to you specifically. So youth reported understanding the need to transition from the bridge house, expressing willingness to relocate to an alternative shelter. Youth stated they would benefit from continued support from housing stabilization, so on and so forth. The objective is for the youth to transition to Franklin. It gives me Franklin's address information. It says that the staff reviewed the transitional plan with the youth and information was given to them. What assessment was made during that conversation and what the plan is afterwards. It even gives you a little thingy. So I'm sorry. I guess you want to say Google information on Franklin's actual address and a visual of what it is. So let's say I only have a limited amount of space. Then I say summarize. And so instead of breaking down each word, it'll summarize it. Nope, that's not what I wanted it to do. So what it did was it summarized it as a SOAP. I want it to be a paragraph. Summarize as paragraph. And it gives me a paragraph that I can copy and paste like this. I don't really like this. It gets weird. So I'll do a traditional copy and paste. And I literally just paste it here. I always go over it. You see, it shows me things are spelled wrong. So, and then I read it to myself to make sure it makes sense to someone who might not know my way of speaking, and they can still get the same information. Youth successfully transitioned from Bridge House to Franklin's Women's Shelter located, and it gives you the address of Franklin. Staff review the transition plan with you, provided shelter information, and discuss available transitional services to support housing stability and independence, including case management, housing assistance, employment, and educational support. Placement demonstrated youth demonstrated an understanding of transition process and acknowledged the importance of engaging with available support. Staff encourage youth to maintain communication with service providers and actively participate in shelter programming to promote long-term housing stability. I said absolutely none of these things to Copilot. But again, because as you use it, what I've learned is as you use it, again, it's intuitive. So as you use it, it knows what certain things are. So if I was to ask it to write it as something else that we might use in chat. So, I mean, in ETO. So a SOAP note is one thing, and then we have something else. I forget what the acronym is, but it's for when we take case notes. If we were to put it in that, it will give me the same information. So I give them a brief of what I needed to say in the form I needed to say it, and it gives me all this information. And that's how I use Copilot. I was using it earlier because I needed to write an involuntary discharge email. That's what you guys saw on the side before I closed it. And again, I did not put the use information in. I did put in what an involuntary discharge process is and how they can reach out to who they needed to reach out to. Gave me a nice, neat email. I made sure it was edited for it to fit who needed to get it. And I just needed to be reviewed so I can send it out.